Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to have a chance to deliver my keynote speech before the participants and professors in the Hankuk University of Foreign Studies and joint seminar of the Cyber Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. As a president of Daegu Cyber University and as chairman of Korea Council of Online Universities, I'm very honored to have a speech, deliver a keynote speech in this joint seminar. I was introduced by the chair of this joint seminar that I have very good experience in the cyber universities and in this field, but I'm afraid I have this kind of experience, so I don't know whether I can give you a good knowledge in the cyber university, but I'm offered by the Dean of Cyber Hankuk University of Foreign Studies, Dr. Kim Myung-jin, to deliver a keynote speech in this joint seminar. So I'd like to thank Dr. Kim to invite me to this joint seminar. So anyway, I'd like to, the topic I was offered to present here is the role of cyber university in the higher education in Korea. Nowadays, cyber university is drawing much attention to the concerned people, particularly the professors and specialists in the higher education field. So, because cyber university has a very recent, even if it is very recent phenomenon, it has growing very fast, and many people in the higher education field has made much more attention on the cyber universities nowadays. So I think that's why I am here for presentation on the role of the cyber university in Korea. So I'd like to present my paper in the following order. So the first, after introduction of this paper, I will elaborate on the new trend of the higher education. And the third, I'd like to talk about the characteristics of the cyber universities. And the fourth, I'd like to speak on the current status of cyber universities in Korea. And I'd like to also, after that, I'd like to explain the role of cyber universities in the higher education. And the sixth, I'd like to analyze the competitive analysis of cyber universities, and next I'd like to suggest some directions for development of cyber universities in Korea, and I will make a conclusion after that. Higher education nowadays in Korea faces new challenges as knowledge-based society is advanced and visualized. Excuse me. I just come up from Daegu to Seoul in the morning, so I took a KTX at 8 o'clock, so it takes about 140 minutes from Daegu to Seoul. So I am a little tired because I wake up very early in the morning, so it takes 140 minutes from Daegu to Seoul, but it takes another 1 hour from Seoul station to here. So I spent a lot of time on the railway and on the road, so I'm a little not recovered yet. But anyway, so okay, sorry. As you may know, we are already in the in transition period of knowledge-based society because of the well-developed IT infrastructure in Korea. IT infrastructure is very much well-developed in Korea. So owing to this kind of well-developed IT infrastructure, so we are now in the transition period of the coming up to the knowledge-based society. So Cyber University comes into the existence as a new paradigm of it's higher education, and in my opinion, is going to play an increasing role in the knowledge-based society in Korea in the future. So this paper studies what role so Cyber University should play in the changing environment of higher education in Korea in the coming of the knowledge-based society. There is a new trend in the higher education, so I'd like to explain a little bit about the new trend in higher education. The first trend I see is that the change in the form and the delivery of knowledge. So in the industrial age, conventional and stylized knowledge were taught to the people in a company with the demand to the homogeneous industrial workers. As Alvin Toffler used to say in his book, The Third Wave, Power Shift, and the Revolutionary Wars, he used to assert that in the industrial age, the workers, so they only needed the conventional stylized workers who come to the factory at the fixed time, the regularly, and to the simple and not complicated, repetitive works. So for this kind of industrial workers, they don't need any complicated knowledge or diversified knowledge. But so this stylized knowledge was delivered in the claimed method of teaching in the school. So this enough for them to work in the industrial society. But in the knowledge-based society, creative and customized knowledge was demanded to the knowledge workers. So in the knowledge-based society is more complicated and diversified. So in that society, so workers are needed to have some complicated and sophisticated knowledge. So, and also in the schools, the process of finding out the knowledge and the solutions are often emphasized rather than knowledge itself in the knowledge-based society. So we need some kind of how to find out the knowledge itself, not the result of the knowledge. The second trend is that the massification. So there is a higher demand for higher education as the people's income level rises. In the early 60s and 70s in Korea, the per capita income was less than $1,000. So at that time, people cannot go to the universities, so they cannot afford to the high tuition of the universities. So only less than 10% of the high school graduates went to the universities. But nowadays, more people tend to go to the universities because their per capita income rise improved a lot. So per capita income nowadays exceeds $20,000 in the US dollar terms. So more people tend to go to the universities because they can afford to go to school. So now almost 86% of the Korean people go to the universities, while about 50% of the people in OECD countries go to the universities as they graduate from the school. So we, in Korea, the aspiration for going to the university is more strong than the OECD in general. So it is expected in Korea, so almost all the Koreans will study in the universities in the near future. I suppose that almost 100% of the Korean people will go to the universities after they graduate from the high school in the future. As a result of this, so some mega universities are emerging from as a result of this. For example, British Open universities, British Open University were opened under the Thatcher administration in early 80s. So now the students graduate from the Open universities exceeds 5% of all the British people. So it has a lot, very strong influence of the higher education market in Britain. So also in the United States, Phoenix Online University, they have about 300,000 students enrolled all over the world. And also in case of the Korea, Korea National University, Open University, has about 1,800,000 students altogether as of now. So it was noticed that all of them are online universities, not conventional offline universities. So mega universities emerges in the online universities, not offline universities nowadays. So they provide mass people with conventional stylized knowledge at very affordable, cheap prices. So that's why they are competitive and they are succeed in the mega universities. So the third trend is that diversification. So taste and the preference for knowledge of learners are diversified, as knowledge itself is diversified and sophisticated in the knowledge-based society. So also the areas of interest are diversified, such as fine art, high-tech, literature, and new science, etc. So knowledge consumers are also diversified, from ranging from elderly, women, handicapped, and social minorities, which was regarded before in the industrial ages. It was regarded they cannot go to the universities at that time. Tools and the media for education are also diversified, such as internet, broadcasting, IPTV, mobile computers, departing from the conventional university campus. There is increasing demand that tailored and personalized knowledge should be delivered in the most customized way in compliance to the diversified knowledge consumers. So massification and the diversification, both of those two trends make the universities adjust to the customer and the students to service the tailored and personalized knowledge, not the crammed method or conventional knowledge, something like that. So the fourth trend is that in the knowledge-based society, higher education often means lifelong education. In other words, higher education means almost identical terms with lifelong education. Higher education cannot be limited to the school education only in the knowledge-based society. So knowledge, because knowledge is ever changing and it's growing so fast. So after school education, people need to study in order to prepare for the retirement through lifelong education in the aging society where they expected to live longer than before. And also they have to keep the competitiveness and survive in the workplaces by lifelong education. So school education is not enough for them to survive in the complicated world in knowledge-based society. So most people who need to lifelong education are either salarymen or knowledge workers who do not have much time and money to spare in the conventional offline universities. So therefore, to them, offline university is regarded as an alternative for study in the lifelong education. So I'm sorry. So the fifth trend is that the new trend is a change in the educational system. So education system also urged to change from the supply-oriented to demand-oriented. So students choose the way of learning rather than teachers, so deciding which courses they should take or which school they should decide or what to learn in the school, something like that. So everything was decided by the students themselves, not by the teachers or parents. Another trend is the very important trend is the globalization in the higher education. So world is now is globalizing, so higher education is also exposed to the globalization, and they are also exposed to the global competition. So in order to survive in the globalized world, they have to cooperate together in the joint degree programs or standardizing curriculum, something like that. As you can see from the European countries, I don't know whether you already heard about the Bologna process in Europe. So the thousand European universities joined to have agreement in the Bologna to have a joint degree programs and standardizing curriculum. So almost millions of students are participate in the Bologna process. So a few weeks ago, the president of chancellor of the British Open Universities came to Seoul, and we discussed and had a meeting with president of cyber universities, and he was also the chairman of the European Association of Distant Teaching Universities, which is equivalent to the Korean Council of Online Universities in Korea. And I discussed with him a lot, and he told me that in order to survive for online university in the higher education, the online universities should cooperate each other and standardizing the curriculums and pursuing the joint degree program, something like that. So nowadays, higher education is regarded as a global commodity, not as public goods. So we have to compete with other foreign universities, not with the domestic local universities. So another significant trend is that the emergence of the collective intelligence. So Korean knowledge consumers often participate in knowledge production and dissemination. As you can see from the Wikipedia and the YouTube, so many people already enlist what they have in mind on the Wikipedia and the YouTube by picturing videos or something like that, and they disseminate their knowledge to many consumers free of charge. So this kind of movement is often we call it the copyleft movement instead of the copyright movement. So knowledge is regarded as a free good, not the economic goods. So you can buy knowledge without paying any cost, so any prices. So this kind of phenomenon is led by the high blend of universities in the United States, such as Ivy schools and MITs. So open source courseware becomes a prevalent phenomenon in the MIT and any other Ivy schools. So they separate knowledge and the contents from their own brand value as a management strategy. So they are selling their brand with high prices, but they are providing the content and the knowledge is free of charge. So you have to pay tuition in order to get the degree of MIT or some Pennsylvania degrees, but you don't have to pay any prices to get the knowledge they provided to their own students. So when I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania a long time ago, at that time, there are some sitting students there, so they cannot get credit, but they can learn in the class by the permission of the professors. But this kind of phenomenon happens nowadays on the contents and online. So they provided their knowledge free of charge to the students all over the world. So, but they cannot get the credit from the Ivy schools. So they are selling their own brand, not their knowledge itself. Therefore, some futurists used to say that
online universities will eventually replace offline universities, and many experimental universities will emerge in the future, such as satellite universities and mentor universities and no calendar universities. You can be admitted to the universities at any time during the year, and you can graduate at any time if you master the curriculum. So, University of No Calendar, University of it's a mentor, and the University of Love. So you can get knowledge from the internet. So university cannot sell the knowledge to the student. The only thing they can do is that they can share experience how to survive in the life. So maintain life, such kind of experimental university will emerge eventually in the future. This kind of forecasting was done by the Peter Drucker, Erwin Toffler, and many other futurists, not this. So now I'll talk about a little bit about the characteristics of Soviet universities. So among the many characteristics Soviet universities have, so I now explain just the two characteristics as an industry. So one characteristic is that Soviet university has an economy of scale in the terminology of the economics. So economics of scale means that the more students comes into the schools, the marginal cost is lowered. So this kind of situation happens also of offline universities too. But in case of the offline university, you have as many students come admitted to the school. We have to build classrooms, and we have to hire more professors to teach the offline students. But in case of the online, you don't have to construct a classroom. You don't have to hire more professors than offline. So you can, so knowledge itself can be shared by any other students, and there is no offline cost to provide the supply knowledge. So in this case, marginal cost decreases. So also, Soviet universities is a network industry, so marginal costs also are decreasing. So as more and more participants enter into the market. So in this for this region, Soviet university is best fit for mass education, and it means that a good instrument for lifelong education. Another characteristics of the Soviet universities is it has a very good instrument for globalization. So students has easy access to the Soviet universities through internet, so they can connect to the Soviet universities even if they located at the end of the globe, so beyond their national boundaries. So World Wide Web allows anybody to study worldwide, and any online universities to deliver the contents. So they can log into the website of the online universities and take lectures wherever places on the globe. And I like to compare some characteristics of the Soviet universities with other universities called open universities and offline universities. So in case of Soviet universities, there is no time constraint and no space constraint, and there is no transfer cost. I don't elaborate in detail, but as you can, I think you already understand it. And in case of the open universities, there is always time constraint because broadcasting time was fixed. So, but there is sometimes some space constraint. So because of the boundary of the coverage of the broadcasting. So in case of the EBS, we cannot listen to the EBS in Japan or in Vietnam or Southeastern Asian countries, but the students in the Southeastern countries has access to the cyber universities, so on the internet. So there is no transfer cost, however, in the open universities. But in case of the offline universities, there is always time constraint, there is always space constraint, and there is always transfer cost. So in order to move from the Daegu University to Hankuk universities, the students have to pay some kind of cost of living and additional tuition, something like that. So there is transfer cost. So now I'd like to speak about on the current situation of the cyber universities. So the first cyber universities were opened in the 2001. At that time, the nine cyber universities were allowed to open under the permission of the authorization of the Ministry of Education at that time. And now is 19 universities are authorized to open cyber university in Korea. And the students now is about 88,000 registered students are studying in the 18 cyber universities now. But in 2001, so only 6,400 students were entered or admitted to the 9 cyber universities. Now, every year is growing about 20% annually on the average. So this year, 22,000 new students registered and admitted to the first year of the cyber universities altogether. However, the cyber universities is just a niche market. It's very small, so the market share is only 5% of occupies over 5% of overall universities industries, including offline universities, open universities, and the cyber universities all together. And as far as I know, is students at four-year universities have 2 million students now, and in case of the vocational colleges, so 1.5 million students are studying in those colleges. But in case of cyber universities, only 88,000 students are studying in the cyber universities, which means there's just 5% of all the university students. So also the entire students numbers in 18 cyber universities do not exceed even half of the students in the Korean National Open Universities. So Korean National Open University has 18,000 students all together, but in case of the cyber universities, 88,000, so less than half of the students. So cyber universities are still at the infant stages, so occupies only 5% of the whole market, and which can be said as niche market. So now, so I can say, because of the time constraint, I like to explain a little faster. So, in my opinion, the cyber university has 3 roles. So role as an alternative to higher education, and the role as an institution for the higher lifelong education, and the third one is role as an instrument for the globalization. So these 3 roles will be played by the cyber universities in the now and in the future. So 11 cyber universities are authorized as an institutions for higher education by the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology 2 years ago, and including the Cyber Hankuk University of Foreign Studies, which is charged by the Dean, Professor Kim Myung-jin, and also including Daegu Cyber University. So those cyber universities can confer bachelor degrees to the students if they successfully complete all the required curriculum, which are almost identical with those of four-year offline universities. So students increasingly prefer cyber universities to offline universities because of its relatively cheaper tuition and its convenience, as they can study at any time and any places. So it plays as a role as a lifelong education. So in the knowledge-based society, people need to study lifelong after their graduation from school in order to survive and to keep competitiveness in the workplaces, as I mentioned before. Also, the people need to study lifelong in order to prepare for their life after retirement. However, most people have difficulty studying offline on campus because they have to work. They don't have time because they have to work. So to them, cyber universities are best choices for lifelong study. And the third role is as the role as globalization. So because of characteristics, the people can study at any time and any place, no matter where and when they are located. Cyber university is best for globalization of higher education. Yeah. And so there are so many foreign students in Southeastern Asian countries, particularly in Vietnam, who are eager to study in the Korean universities. However, they are constrained by geographically as well as economically. They cannot afford to come to study in the Korean universities here. So to them, Korean cyber universities are a very good choice to study and to get as a Korean bachelor degrees. I don't want to elaborate on this competitive analysis. It's beyond my coverage here, but just a very simple statement is that is a strong point for the cyber universities is tuition is very cheap compared with the offline universities. It's almost 1/3 of the tuition of the offline universities. However, it is expensive than the tuition of the Korean national open universities. So it's almost twice as expensive as the Korea open universities. That's why we are a little weak against Korea open universities. But we are strong in competitiveness against offline university in tuition. So, and also the big point is this: cyber university market is very much fragmented and it's a niche market. So the investment is still very low, and among the online universities, the size is polarizing nowadays. So some major cyber university in Seoul, they have students of more than 10,000 nowadays. But in case of the local cyber universities, there are many local cyber universities who has only 1,000 students, something like that. Now, I'd like to suggest some direction for the development. As I mentioned earlier, just before, this cyber university is very at infant stage. It is growing, even if it is growing very fast, about growing 20% every year on the average, but still they're occupying 5% of market share in the university, all the universities. So it has yet to grow, and it has to have kind of competitiveness. So in order to get some competitiveness, the cyber university has to cooperate each other. As I mentioned just earlier,
So the chancellor of the British Open University told me that to survive in the university market and to get competitive in those markets, the Cyber universities has to unite and cooperate each other to by providing a lot of selections to the students through lecture content sharing and the joint degree programs. And so my purpose here as a chairman of the Korea Council of Online Universities is that if you are admitted to any kind of cyber universities, you can if you get the regular, you pass the regular curriculums, you can get degree from any cyber universities in Korea. So we had a joint agreement with president of cyber universities last May for this kind of joint degree programs and joint sharing of contents, something like that. So if it is operated and if this program is succeeded, so students can come any cyber universities and study any places, any cyber universities, and they can get degrees from any other cyber universities. So if this program is implemented, I think students can have a lot of choices because they can study in any cyber universities in Korea. So in case of offline universities, even if you have it is not very easy to have a joint academic degree program because of geographically universities are separated and far away. So students, it's not very easy to move from one university to another university to take courses. So, but in case of cyber universities, they don't move, they don't go to the university's campus for study. So they just click to the another cyber university to take courses. So they can study as much as they can. They wish to take in any other cyber universities. So maybe you can choose courses from hundreds of different courses all over the other cyber universities. So I think it can give us a big edge to the cyber universities. Also, we have to promote partnerships or collaborations by joint lecture contents or establishment of joint server system or joint promotion, something like that. Also, we have to prevent excessive competition among the cyber universities in the entrance examination. In the earlier stages of cyber universities, we had very acute and severe competition among the cyber universities to recruit more students from the high school or any other vocational colleges. So in this case, so we had very difficult to cooperate and to get competitiveness eventually. So I asked, as a chairman of the Korea Council of Online Universities, I asked the president of respective cyber universities not to severely compete against the cyber universities. We have to cooperate each other in the entrance examination. So we have to abide by the rule and abide by the kind of deadlines or something like that. So also the Ministry of Education enforce us to cooperate in this kind of entrance examination competition. So we also need to improve position of the online universities in the market through the Korean Council for Online Universities. So nowadays we are trying to pass a law for the Korean Council for Online Universities by the by the lawmakers, national congressmen. Last month we had some hearings in the National Assembly whether we have to enact the Korean special law of the Korean Council for Online Universities. So at that time, the chairman, House Speaker Kim Hyung-ho came to our meetings and give us the congratulatory address, and the Jung Mong-jun, the representative of Hannara Party, also came to the meeting and give us congratulatory address. And almost 30 congressmen from the Hannara Party came to this meeting and congratulated our meetings at that time. So I'm very much optimistic that in the very near future, the special law of Korea Council for Online Universities will be enacted by the National Assembly. So, as you may know, the offline university have also this kind of special law already. It's called in Korean terminology 대교협법. So the Korea Council for Online Universities is just equivalent to the 대교협 in the offline universities. So through this association, through this Korean Council for Online Universities, we need to promote cooperation among the member universities. So eventually we have to get the competitiveness. So another direction for the development is that we have to enhance our quality of education by the differentiation. So we have to secure the best professors and the best contents. Also, we have to differentiate curriculum and the majors, and we have to open. We are going to open the professional graduate schools next year, including maybe cyber, Hamburg universities of foreign studies, and my school, my universities also, and some other universities will join the opening the professional graduate school next year. Also, we have to construct and provide a national grid for e-learning. So, in my opinion, so we are going to be advanced country in the near future economically. So, by reaching to the $40,000 per capita income, but before we become the advanced country economically, I think we have to be advanced countries in the way of thinking, and our way of thinking, the mind is far behind the peoples of advanced countries. So we need to be upgrade our consciousness and our mind and our way of thinking to the level of the advanced countries. So in order to upgrade our mind way of thinking, so we have to provide all the knowledge and information necessary for living and well-being for the people nationally through online.
and improve people's quality of life and upgrade people's way of thinking and enhance national competitiveness through lifelong online education, something like that. So I'm trying to persuade the government to support this program. So if the government support our program, I think it will has a very good influence on the Korean people as a whole, as well as the enhancement of the national competitiveness through the upgrading of the people's consciousness and way of thinking. In case of Britain, they have already the national grid for e-learning in Britain, so I benchmarked the British cases. So finally, we need to collaborate for globalization. So as I told you before, Sabian University is very good for the globalization. So we need to collaborate with other institutions in the contents, making with English and Chinese versions. So I don't know whether in Cyber Hankook University or Forest State they have contents made in English version or any other foreign language versions, but in Daegu Sabian Universities we have only one contents in English version in the course of the Korean knowledges, but we have to produce more contents in English versions and Chinese version, but this cannot be done by our own expense or by our own effort. So it needs some support from the government. So we have to also exploit the foreign Sabian University market in the future together. So as a conclusion, so Sabian University is expected to play an increasing role in the higher education as a knowledge-based economy and society is visualized. So its role threefold in my opinion. So role as an alternative to offline university, role as an institution for lifelong education, and role as a globalization for higher education. So Sabian University has to enhance competitiveness in order to cope with ever-changing environment in higher education, such as massification, diversification, globalization, and consumerization, as I mentioned earlier, because Sabian University is still very young and very at infant stages. So Sabian University will have to possess competitiveness by differentiation in strategy, respectively, and by cooperating as a whole among the member universities of Sabian Universities. Thank you very much. I'm very sorry for my poor English, and because I'm also very, I'm not very much recovered from, so that's why I spoke a little broken English, so I'm sorry. Thank you very much.